Howdy there, y'all. Yamasaki here. Welcome back to the channel. Today is part 3 of the Lauson hit and miss engine restoration. As you guys can see, I got this thing soaking on one side of the cylinder with evaporust. Had just enough to fill up the entire cylinder. It's probably been in there about an hour. I'm sure that's probably plenty of time. So I'm going to go ahead and drain it and all that, and we'll take a look. But not really sure what part 3 is going to entail, but I guess we're going to find out. So stay tuned. So I got the all the evaporust out of there, and I took some xylene and cleaned up the cylinders, and then I let just a little bit of Marvel's mystery oil kind of sit in there for about an hour. I pounded on it with a little bit of a brass rod and tried to get it free, but this is going to be a time-consuming process getting this thing out of here. But as you can see, the bore is looking really good on this side at least. The hone's going to take care of everything else. But that piston is still stuck. I was hoping... I heated it up too. I heated it from the hopper in here for a good while. I don't know if it really did anything. Might have to do that several times through in order to get this thing out of here. Earlier this morning I put some oil down in this dripper, in that dripper inlet right there, but as soon as I tipped it up, it leaked all the way out, so I don't think it really did much. Got the bearing caps off. Have those currently drying. I paint stripped them and then degreased them some more because they were one of the greasiest things on here. Makes sense. As you can see, these journals are beautiful. I don't know if I showed them in the last couple of videos on this thing, but they're in really good shape. It is confirmed that that joint there moves. Not sure about this one still. This thing does actually have shims. It's got a couple of shims in spots, so gonna have to take note of that and be wary of that. Yeah, this piston's gonna be a pain in the ass. Aside from that, I'm still just painting parts here and there. There's the splash plate screw. I got it painted gray. Got all these washers for the bearing caps and the governor assembly primed. I'm priming 2 of the bearing cap bolts now. They're going to be red, so it's going to look pretty, that's for sure. Fine details. Well, I'll be darned, those bearing caps turned out real good in that smoke gray. Put 2 coats of primer, yep, and then 2 coats of this smoke gray. So this gray takes a pretty long time to dry, so it's going to be an overnight deal for them to dry. But the babbitts in them look pretty good. Any light crap that's in there, you know, when this thing starts spinning and everything gets hot and settled in, they'll be nice and shiny and smooth. These things run, I think, at a maximum of like 500 RPM, so not really worried about it. And I went ahead and put the governor and camshaft assembly back in the evaporust. I'll let that thing sit in there another time. And I'm going to heat the hell out of it and try and get the rest of it free. I really need to work on that part, make sure everything's in good order. So I'm going to go ahead and paint these 2 bearing cap bolts. Certain colors just take a really long time to dry, and this Rust-Oleum Farm Implement International Harvester Red is one of those. But I'm painting every single piece that's not immediately exposed to oil or grease. I've hardly had to buy any hardware for this thing, so I think it's just Just a good idea to reuse what they stuck with originally. Just a nice deep red. Man, that looks good. And then I'm going to go ahead and let it sit for a couple of minutes and put the second coat on, and that's pretty much what I'm doing with every single part that I can. Alright, so back to the engine itself. I just got this crankshaft lifted up with the help of my brother-in-law. Got it resting on a piece of wood so I can get better access to this lower nut. Both points on this are free, so we're looking pretty good. Just that and that valve to battle. Right, so now we're on to the part that I've been waiting for. Got the flywheel assembly off. All the points on the connecting rod are free. So it's just that piston that's stuck. And I believe it's the most stuck right back here, where all the water and rain and all the other crap got into. So we're going to go ahead and use what's left of my good evapo-rust. I think my other two buckets are finally getting towards the end of their life. And I use this stuff on the other side of the cylinder, but now we're going to use it on the rear side and see if we can do some damage and get some of this stuff freed up. So I'm just going to pour it in there. All the way up. Keep going. Right about there. That's where we're going to leave it. Everything's in there. It's even covering the back side and on the walls of the cylinder back there. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And then evapo-rust, the reason why you don't want to keep this stuff around forever and exposed to oxygen is it turns into this really sticky, sappy-like maple syrup, and it's impossible to get things unstuck from it. Now don't ask me how I know that, but we're just going to put this right in there and try and keep the oxygen off of it the best we can. Let that soak for, hell, I don't know, maybe a day, overnight, 2 days. I don't know. I'll just get back to you when I decide to drain it. And while we're letting that piston and cylinder soak, might as well show you guys the flywheel assembly here and the crankshaft. I still have a these things, because they're so heavy, they like to, you know, go places on their own. I don't want it to hit anything. You really don't want to bend the crankshaft. That's a big thing I've heard doing research and watching other videos, especially on the open spoke flywheels. You don't want to lift them from just the flywheels. You want something going across from them and making sure you don't put uneven pressure on that crank and bend it. So when I lifted this thing out, one person was on this side, the other person was on the other side, and we got it off. One of the things I'm concerned about, you see there's 4 pieces that I have found so far that are stuck on this engine. The piston, of course, this governor assembly that's on the flywheel, the governor and camshaft assembly right here, we'll get into that in a minute, and of course our all-knowing beautiful exhaust valve is still stuck. Anyway, I'm not going to end up taking these flywheels off. I don't really think it's necessary. And another thing I found out is, especially with these big dish plate flywheels, these solid flywheels, they're really hard to get off of the crankshaft because of the keys that they used. They didn't use regular square stock keys, ones that you can just punch in and out. No, they had to go and use a wedge. And there's a trick around it, but I don't think it's worth the effort. I mean, look at the journals. They're dirty, a little rusty and grimy in spots, but for being exposed out to the weather for years and years, these things held on pretty good. Maybe a little bit of sanding and cleaning and they'll be back to it. Not sure how I'm going to go about getting the rust off of everything, because I'm not going to be able to evapor-rust this thing this way unless I get really creative. Like I've showed, 3 studs and 3 nuts to get the pulley assembly off. But in order to get that governor assembly off, you have to take the flywheel off. And as far as I know, everything on this is froze up, and I don't know how it really operates, because this whole mechanism here somehow trips something on the assembly here, which goes to your push rod and then your valves and everything. I still don't know how it really works, because I've never worked on a hit and miss engine. This is the first one I ever have done, so I'm learning as I go. But like, this has something to do with your magneto. Your camshaft is right here, which is pushing this whole thing right here, which is acting upon your magneto and your push rod, and that is one of the things that's stuck. You see, the cam is perfectly free. It's wanting to play house. But this whole slider rod, from the looks of it, you have to have these dogs here, and they're supposed to, this one's supposed to block this one once it's all the way out. Comes and clips right there. Can't do that, because the whole rod that's supposed to move is stuck. And I guess we're already getting into this thing. So yeah, this is the camshaft slash governor assembly. Had to replace the bolt on top here. I think it was a stud maybe, and it had a square, wow, I can't speak still, square nut on it. But there was almost nothing left of it, so I decided to just replace it. That's like the only new piece of hardware I need to replace. What else can I talk about for this video, this hit and miss? I think I may end up buying a new drip oiler, just because it's in great shape, but this lower piece right here still has a whole bunch of grease in there. I think there's a check ball in there. I don't know how well this is going to operate, so I may just have to find one and adapt it to this pipe here, or find one that's original like this size here. But I did order a sight glass. I was able to get a sight glass for that. Well, y'all, aside from that, I think I'm going to close this video out. We're going to resume this project in the next part. There's not much else I can show you. I mean, I've painted a couple other parts, and this is where I'm at now. I'm soaking the piston and just trying to get the frozen parts unstuck. Still have to get the rest of this apart. I guess I can show you one more cool thing. When I was jimmying this thing back and forth, because I just have it sitting on a little 2x4 right there to help support it, but when I was lifting, this piece of wood, oh, I can't get it out now. This piece of wood came out. As far as I know, that thing's just wedged in there. I thought that was genius. Need to take your gas tank off? Oh, that's easy. Unscrew the pipe, pop these suckers out, unscrew these. There's your gas tank. You got her, man. Which I thought was pretty neat. But yeah, that's where we're at. Trying to get things unstuck. So I will see you guys in, what is this, part 3? Going to part 4 now. So I'll see you guys in part 4 of the Lauson hit and miss restoration. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more content. And Yamasaki out. We'll see y'all later.